Before we start, I'd like to thank all of our current patrons for helping to support the collective. Obscura, a true crime podcast, Cara Demizio, Brandon Scheck Snyder, John, Strictly Homicide podcast, Jules, a Murderific podcast, and Landshark. Thank you guys so much for your support and helping keep this going. And thank you to all the listeners. I know you support through listening, and some of us can't always support monetarily, but patrons know it's much appreciated. And there, I think, will be double podcast episodes this month as I catch up and maybe work on getting some additional surprises in there. Welcome back, Collective. We're with Vanessa again from Not Another X-Files podcast.
Yes.
I like that.
The double thing.
Yes, it's more fun to say.
Thank you.
And she's going to bring us a cheerful topic this time because I brought the whole mood down.
So cheerful. It's a little bit too cheerful, maybe, like kind of pretty darn wholesome. Maybe not super on brand for your podcast, but
what is on brand for my podcast besides, well, I guess for cheerfulness, yeah, there's not a lot of cheerfulness that I do.
But we talked about this last time. Your podcast theme opens up so many possibilities, and you were like, hey, do you want to be on with me this time? And I was like, yeah. And you're like, do you want to do history or true crime? And I'm like, thinking to myself, I don't do the best with true crime personally. Like, I don't really want to go down a dark rabbit hole, so I'll do history. And then I was like, maybe I could do something like history of the Freemasons, because it's something I've been kind of like interested in lately. And then off mic, we were talking about it, and I'm like, it's too big of a topic.
That's a podcast within a podcast within a podcast, where you have separate podcasts for each branch of Freemasons and all of that. And no one needs, I mean, unless you're starting another one, which, I mean, go for it.
I'm good. I don't have enough time. But then my husband was like, my husband loves Christmas. It's actually really funny. And he was like, I'm going to put the Christmas decorations up. And I'm like, okay. And then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about frickin' Christmas.
If this ends up being on Christmas, like that week, I'm going to laugh my ass off.
That would be awesome. Because make it happen. No, I'm just kidding.
We're recording this in the middle of November.
It's the middle of November, but like it's starting to feel like Christmas. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Not in Cincinnati. We had snow. It has melted.
Well, I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and we did have snow recently, and while it is melting, it's still kind of on the ground, and there will be more. I guarantee it. So,
yeah, when I go
to
Cleveland,
all my neighbors are putting up their lights and stuff, so.
Oh, yeah, you guys don't have the epic debate, because you already had Thanksgiving. Our Thanksgiving's coming up.
That's right.
And I don't know when it is, because I'm not going home, so I don't care.
It's always like the fourth Thursday of November. I'm American, so so it's okay, because like now I feel like I'm allowed to be excited about Christmas because I like Christmas.
I also don't really own Christmas decorations. I can show you. I have my Halloween lights still on.
Ooh.
There's skulls.
I like Halloween lights. Those are cool.
There's skulls, and then the other two are supposed to be purple and white, but they just look like various shades of white.
That's cool.
I do have Christmas lights that have been up all year round because I hate turning on lights, so I'll just plug in the Christmas lights.
Nice.
Instead of turning.
Yeah, that works. Totally. Well, I mean, I didn't always like Christmas. Like, I have worked in retail a lot in the past, and like, as soon as they start the Christmas tunes, it's the worst. And I don't like most Christmas music. I have a Spotify playlist that I put together that is like very not traditional Christmas music. Like, there's no jingle bells of any kind. There's no rocking around the Christmas tree. Like, it's songs that are like Christmas and winter themed, but they're not typical. Okay. And that's like the only thing I can listen to.
That's better, because like you probably have retail PTSD from hearing the same version of a song, and you're just like, no.
A little bit.
Not rocking around the clock. I did see the best Christmas theme meme the other day. It was, how many people immediately went to your mom's having an affair when you heard Mommy's kissing Santa Claus rather than Daddy was Santa Claus? And I was just like,
me. I totally went there. When I was a kid, I think I was just like, okay, she's kissing Santa Claus. But then when I was older, I was like, she's totally cheating on her husband or whatever. Or her wife.
Yeah, we don't know.
It's 2019.
We're not going to judge.
Yeah.
We discussed this last time. Gender is fluid. So
That's
who
right.
knows?
That's right. Oh, man. Okay.
So yes, tell me about Christmas.
Christmas. Okay. So I actually find the history of Christmas pretty interesting. I'm not a super religious person at all. I'm not an atheist, but I'm not like I have my own spirituality, but I'm not Christian per se. And I used to be pagan. I used to practice paganism a lot, like neo-paganism. So for me, that's really interesting because Christmas like comes from pagan traditions. I'm sorry, but it's true. And so
Saint Nicholas is my favorite person to read about because he's metal as hell.
I don't have a ton about him actually, because I'm kind of doing a very brief overview, not super brief, but like an overview. But yeah, he's super interesting. And, you know, the whole thing of Santa Claus, like he comes apparently from a bunch of different traditions, what we know of him today and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is super interesting. And that's kind of what Christmas is. It comes from a whole bunch of different traditions. So another thing that I should note is I'm half German and I have a German passport. My mom's from Germany. And so I really grew up with German Christmas traditions when I was younger. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit too, because it's pretty interesting.
I'm a quarter German. So like my cousin who now hosts Christmas makes like the German gingerbread, and she goes to Aldi's and gets like the German German Christmas stacks for like my mom and her sisters and like all that stuff.
I wish we had, it's in German you say Aldi. I wish we had Aldi here. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
it's my favorite thing. Everyone who knows
great.
me is like, stop talking about Aldi's. You talk about it all the time.
No, it's so good. And in Germany, it's great too. So, yeah. Okay, so here's the thing about Christmas. We all know that Christmas commemorates the birth of Jesus Christ, who Christians believe is the Son of God and the Messiah. And I'm not going to like give a religious studies lesson, but like we definitely have to talk about the Christian story of Christmas because duh. So the Gospels of Matthew and Luke in the Bible focus on the birth of Jesus. And as far as I remember, I'm not super like, you know, up on the Bible. I'm not really super familiar with it, but I'm pretty sure they don't actually talk, like they talk about his birth. And then there's like a whole bunch of years where they don't talk about him anymore until he's like older.
Until he's like a teenager. Yeah. Until he's like 15 or something.
Yeah, it's weird. So yeah,
no one wants to talk about the awkward face.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I have my first pimple.
He's yelling at God, "You're not my real dad."
Exactly, throwing a fit.
That would be awkward if you're the son of God and then you're yelling at Joseph, "You're not my real dad."
Oh my God.
And Joseph is just like, "Yeah, we all know. We all know.
We're aware.
We went through it.
You don't have to remind me, okay?" Christmas is literally Christ Mass, the Mass of Christ. And something that I find really funny, actually, and my friend who's Catholic reminds me of this all the time. People say Xmas, right? To like be an abbreviation of Christmas. And then you get all these people who are like, don't say Xmas, you're taking Christ out of Christmas. But here's the thing. X in the Greek alphabet is the letter chi, which is the first letter of the Greek word for Christ, which is Christos. So when you say Xmas, you're actually still talking about Jesus.
Oh, I'm gonna use that. I'm
love
that
it.
kind of asshole who loves the semantics. Like when people bitch about like the different, like they're like, you're reading the wrong form of the Bible, and I just want to be like, well, are you reading the ancient Greek version because that's the real version pre, Council of Nicaea and them determining what books they're gonna be in?
Exactly.
No,
I know.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. Bye, Felicia. Yeah, so totally. Please use that. And my friend who's Catholic uses it all the time. She's like, no, let me tell you. Something that's kind of interesting is that nobody really knows when Jesus was born. There's even people out there who say Jesus didn't exist. I mean, I don't know what my opinion is, but there is evidence in the Bible apparently to show that he was probably born in the spring, not even in the winter. Yeah. So kind of interesting.
Love it.
Christmas is mostly celebrated on December 25th around the world, not everywhere though. The Roman Emperor Constantine decided that December 25th would be the date. And the first recorded celebration was December 25th, 336 CE, Common Era. And Pope Julius I made it the official date. So again, it's a man-made.
It's the Julian calendar, we're just living in it.
Exactly. So they were using the Julian calendar, and the Julian calendar was used from 25 BCE to 1582 CE. Or maybe it was, 25 CE to 1582 CE. Sorry. And then we switched to the Gregorian calendar, which is the one we use now. And the date that Christmas was celebrated wasn't actually adjusted on the calendar, so it throws the date off. So Christmas is celebrated, what we celebrate is almost 2 weeks earlier than it was originally. So there are people in some countries like, Orthodox Christians in like Russia and some other countries celebrate it based on the Julian calendar. So January 7th on the Gregorian calendar, which is our current calendar, if that makes any sense.
Calendarception.
Yeah, it's really weird. So that's why some people might practice it later, like in like early January.
Yeah, and man, when they did that calendar, I remember reading about how much difficulty they had just deciding it, and they're just like trying to figure out just everything, and I'm just like, that's a lot of work. I'm glad I was
dudes. And it was all dudes, like,
oh yeah, dudes in Rome.
I just love when people still sort of like hold on to this December 25th was Jesus' birthday thing, because I'm like, we don't really have any proof of that.
I mean, we could always pull the Korean method where, like, what is it? It's like you have two birth years, so like your age is different. So I think it's like they count like the 9 months you're in the womb, or I forget.
Yeah, I've heard about that. So you're not actually like 0 when you were born. You're actually like
9 months.
Yeah. Also, there's like the Jewish or the Muslim calendars, which I think are based on the sun, not the moon. Mm-hmm. So the Jewish, actually, I'm really curious what the Jewish year is right now, because it's like going to be a totally different year than we're in right now, because we're in 2019 in the Gregorian calendar, and they are in 20 Heshvan 5780. Not entirely sure what that means, but I guess we're in the year 5780. So, So something that's interesting about gift giving historically, which I thought was really weird, is that the tradition of gift giving was only developed during the Reformation in the 16th century. And before that, it was only common for landlords and tenants to give gifts to each other, which is really weird to me.
Like, do the tenants give the landlords the gift, or is it reversed?
Apparently, it's both ways.
I could see that, because it's a symbiotic relationship. Because I know Henry VIII, like, people would give him gifts and he would get them gifts. So it's like vassal lord kind of thing.
I didn't know that.
I'm surprised the Reformation was like, we're going to do gifts. Because,
well, I don't know if it's like part of the Reformation, but it was like that time.
Because I was like, Luther seems like not a fan of that. And like Calvin, like all the different splinter groups seem like they would not be a fan. Especially
when stuff about Luther.
Please give it to me.
Okay, it's a little bit further down. So speaking of gifts and Santa Claus, the first depiction of Santa Claus was like the way that we sort of know him today, sort of kinda, was a poem in 1821 called Old Santa Claus with Much Delight. And I know, it's so wholesome. And he's based off of Saint Nicholas, who was a 4th century bishop who was known for giving gifts to the poor. But then there's also like, he was there was a Turkish Saint Nicholas or something. He was like a Turkish prince or something. There was like a Turkish thing in there as well. I didn't write it down, but
yeah. So he was a bishop in Turkey.
Oh, that's what it was.
My favorite Saint Nicholas fact, because he's so metal, because at the Council of Nicaea, they were trying to figure out because early Christianity was the wild, wild west.
Yeah,
you had bishops, and there was no uniform idea.
Yeah.
And they were going against this heretic, and Saint Nicholas punched him out.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he's super metal, because he was like, oh, I can't remember the heretic's name. It's it's like this big controversy in the early church, and he was just like, nah, bitch.
That's awesome.
So I'd rather know him for that than it's giving gifts.
Yeah, I was going to say that's like a really weird thing to think of, but I love it. In Dutch, St. Nicholas was known as Sinterklaas, and that could be one reason we say Santa Claus today. Would make sense. Also, Santa is like saint, and Claus could be like a short form of Nicholas. Mm-hmm. And then in 1843, A Christmas Carol by George Dickens came out. And personally, my favorite version of that is the Muppets version.
But you mean Charles Dickens?
What did I say?
George?
Charles. I don't know why I said George.
I was
that was weird.
Is there another Dickens?
Nope. My brain did a weird thing. But yeah, so my favorite version of of Christmas Carol is the Muppets version. I freaking love that movie.
It's a great version.
It's hilarious. It's so cute. Okay, so a lot of that also established themes of Christmas we see today. Like a lot of the let's have dinner with our families and let's, give things to people who are in need and that kind of thing. It really came a lot from A Christmas Carol. And Santa's depiction of him in red and white with a big belly is from Coca-Cola's advertisements. And they started in 1931. And we've all seen the Coca-Cola Santa with his bottle of Coke.
Capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
What are we going to do about it?
For sure. But before that, he was actually skinnier and he would wear green. So that's weird. Something I never knew. Well, I think green because there's a lot of ties, Christmas is tied to nature in a lot of ways, which I'll get into. Okay. And so I think green, that's kind of where that came from. And I'm sure there's stuff out there about why we do green and red, and why there's, I know that there holly is involved because in some pagan traditions, I think in the Celtic traditions, they had a holly king, for example, who was a figure.
And that would be red and green, so that would make sense.
Exactly. So it comes from different places, I'm sure. Okay, so there are other traditions in various countries that differ from what we think of Santa Claus bringing gifts on the 24th overnight. So we open them on the 25th or whatever. In the Ukraine, Grandfather Frost brings gifts. And in Spain, the three wise men from the Bible bring gifts. So, I don't know.
I'm just going to picture the Jack Frost from the Jack Frost claymation movie.
Yes.
Is doing it because that is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I kind of imagine something like that as well, though I did see a picture and it basically just looks like a Santa Claus in
blue,
a majestic robe. So I don't know.
Can't go wrong with a majestic robe.
No, I love majestic robes. In fact, I have some right here. No, I'm just kidding. I wear them all the time. No,
I have one over my lap because I turned down all the heat so that way it would come on during this.
That's fair. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about my German heritage because I'm self-centered. No, just kidding. I just Germany has really does Christmas right, in my opinion. So
they were the reason it spread because you had the German kings and queens who came over to England
They had a big hand in bringing Christmas traditions also to England, and then the English brought them to the States, but also the Germans brought them to the States.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit about that a little bit further down too. So I was saying, my mom's German and I have German citizenship and a passport and I've been there lots of times and I've been there at Christmas and it's magical. Say what you want about Christmas. Christmas in Germany is something else. And I don't know why. It's just so idyllic. And, if there's snow, it's just so romantic. And everything smells like cinnamon. And it's just so nice.
My dream. I love the smell of cinnamon.
Oh, it's so good. My husband is very allergic to cinnamon. Anaphylactic. Yeah. It's very sad.
He goes around with a mask. He's I'm enjoying everything, but I can't smell anything.
Pretty much. The worst is going into Michael's, the craft store, and they pump cinnamon into cinnamon smell into their vents. And so you walk in at Christmas time and he's I'm dying. It's really bad.
I'll wait in the car.
That's pretty much what happens. Yeah. A couple things. These are things that I sometimes took part in when I was a kid. There's St. Nicholas Day. So on the night of December 5th, children leave their boots and their shoes outside of their bedroom doors and go to bed. And in the morning, they wake up and there are little presents and sweets and candies. And apparently they're from St. Nicholas or Sankt Nikolaus. It's called Nikolaustag or Nicholas Day.
Like it.
It's very wholesome and fun. And then there's a thing called Krampusnacht or Krampus, I guess you would say in English. And it's something that I didn't take part in when I was a kid. and my parents didn't either. And I think it's because my parents didn't want me to have like that negative experience of Christmas. But he's kind of like a sidekick of St. Nicholas, and he's supposed to teach naughty children a lesson. And I think that might be partly where that whole like Santa knows who's naughty and nice stuff comes from.
Yeah. Instead of having two characters, you have one.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Yeah, exactly. And then also I think in the States we tend to soften things a little bit. Yeah. So like Krampus is maybe a little bit too negative for Americans, but Germans are all over it.
We're like, yeah. I mean, German fairy tales are pretty metal. Could you imagine the Santa Claus movies with Tim Allen if there was a Krampus in there? Oh, that would be so awesome.
That would be so good. I actually love the Santa Claus movies, just like nostalgia factor. But yeah, that would be like, they tried to have a bad guy with Jack Frost or whatever, like in the like last movie, and it was so bad.
It was horrible. They did the first one, good. Then they're like, money, let's make some more. And I was
the
like,
second
no, I don't
one
like
was
this.
okay, but the last one was really bad. Yeah,
like it was fair. Okay. You're like, you want to get Mrs. Claus, but
yeah, I don't know. They tried. Okay, so in southern Germany and in other parts of Germany, but in Bavaria, in southern Germany, it's common for men to dress up as Krampus, and it's basically like a devil costume. Like he has horns and he has like and they have like a furry body and stuff like that, and they basically hand out coal to kids and scare them and sort of like run around and just be obnoxious and whatever, and it's just a thing.
I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And then you probably heard of an advent calendar that was actually started in Germany, apparently. In German, it's called an Adventskalender. And they're very common in Germany, and they've become more popular in other parts of the world, too. And then another very German thing is the Advent wreath, which was started by German Lutherans in the 16th century.
Oh, the Lutherans.
Yeah. And it's like a real German icon of Christmas. Like it's a wreath with candles, and the wreath sits on a table. It's not one that goes up on the door, and there's candles on it. And then what my family does is they bring it out during the first week of December, and then we light a candle every Sunday to lead up to Christmas. And that's just like a way to count up to Christmas. And then there are Christmas markets in Germany, which are amazing. And you drink Glühwein, which is like mulled wine. And
I've had it. Cincinnati is very German.
Oh, really?
That's why it's called Cincinnati. And we have so it's very German.
I didn't know that.
I mean, it's really the only ethnicity that's very populous here. It's the
interesting. I did not know that about Ohio. Yeah, so it's mulled wine for people who don't know, and it's amazing. And there's like food at these places, like so much food and carousels and merchants, and it's like everything's lit up, and it's just really nice. So yeah.
They're super fun. Like it's like normal. I know in the US we have like there's a couple in here, and like there's music and you can get gifts and really a lot of beer and mulled wine.
I mean, wherever you have Germans, you have beer.
It's pretty stereotypically correct.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's Germany. I just had to talk about it because I love it. A really iconic thing of Christmas, of course, is the Christmas tree. And I was talking earlier about winter solstice.
Yeah.
That's basically what Christmas is sort of kind of based on. So in Northern Europe, the Norse celebrated Yule from December 21st, which is the solstice, through January. And of course, the solstice is the shortest night of the year. And it was like a celebration to celebrate the return of the sun after the shortest night of the year, after it's been really dark. And we were just talking about it getting dark at 4.
Yeah, it's depressing.
That kind of thing. So depressing. And so what would happen is fathers and sons would get large logs and bring them home, and they'd set them on fire, I'm assuming outside. And then they'd wait for the logs to burn out. And that could take up to 12 days sometimes, which sounds really familiar as well. 12 days of Christmas.
12 days of Christmas.
And those were like the original Yule logs. And so the Norse also believed that every spark that would come off the fire would result in a new pig or calf being born in the coming year, because they're an agricultural society.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, right. And so the Christmas tree comes out of this pagan tradition. And like I was talking earlier about neo-pagans, it's a whole other topic, but Pagans were, and if they're neo-pagans, they are really focused on nature, agricultural, worship deities that like supported them in their agriculture. And so they would decorate their homes and villages with pine and spruce and like evergreen boughs or whatever branches. And they believed that these evergreens would like keep away ghosts or evil spirits. And they also were a reminder that like there would be more green plants coming again when spring comes. So
that's always a good reminder when it's dark at 4 and you're like, when will the sun return? When will the greenery return?
Exactly.
And then you're like, my whole house is full of green. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. And so that's kind of where the Christmas tree tradition comes from too. And so Germany is, again, credited with starting the Christmas tree tradition. And apparently it's Martin Luther who first added candles to a tree.
He seems like someone who was a fan of a good candle.
Yeah, right?
He's not a fan of a lot of things, but a good candle and good stealing nuns out of nunneries seems like he's a fan of them.
Those things totally go together.
You know, you can light your, like, put the candle in the window to let me know you're ready to escape. Because his wife was a escaped nun. So.
Nice.
And then they have a bajillion children.
Yes. Well, as you do.
As you do when there's no birth control.
Indeed. And when you're very Christian. So I guess like the Christmas tree turned into a Christian thing as well. Started out as a pagan thing and then turned into a Christian thing, which is normal, I guess. Another thing about like sort of linking or like bringing paganism or Christmas from paganism to Christianity is that in Germany, I want to say, I mean, this is like agricultural times, like, you know, almost prehistoric in a way. Maybe not. That's probably not the right term, actually. But so people honored
early modern and stuff.
Yeah, even before that, though, like back when they were, you know, like there was no Christianity, right? So pre-Christianity.
Yeah, so ancient world.
Yeah. So people in Germany honored the god Odin. The Godin. No.
The Godin. That is the most metal way to say Odin. Yeah. The Godin.
So they were terrified of him. And they believed that he would take nocturnal flights through the sky and he would observe his people and then decide who would prosper or perish. Which is like...
he Mothman?
Or Santa Claus, kind of. Because he would fly through the air.
That's true, but I just picture him as Mothman, like just like...
I know. Well, or a crow.
Yeah, he is associated with crows.
Or ravens. So. I don't remember which one. Yeah. Actually, something I just thought of too is I have a friend in Finland who told me that there was an ancient Finnish tradition or like belief that there was a god in the woods who actually had like reindeer antlers and you had to actually bring him gifts so that he wouldn't like hurt your family or so that he would like bless your family. And if you didn't bring him gifts, that was a bad thing. And it's almost like Santa Claus too, because there's like that reindeer theme. And then it's like, but it's like the opposite. Like you have to give the god gifts, not the other way around.
Don't you always give gods gifts so they don't like, I'm just thinking.
Should.
Yeah. I mean, we used to sacrifice like people, animals, gold, things to gods. Yeah.
But I just think it's funny because like, it just goes to show that there's all these different traditions that maybe went into like creating Santa and creating Christmas as we know it today. So it's kind of interesting.
And it took so long that it just kind of all blended together. So like getting back to it, you're just like, oh, someone just, it's mythological telephone.
Yeah, exactly. And another myth to add here, or like I guess myth or, you know, lore, was Saturnalia, which was celebrated in Rome around the winter solstice. And it's like the winters weren't as harsh as up north, but they would celebrate the god Saturn, who is the god of agriculture. So again, it's an agricultural thing. And it was like, I was reading on history.com, it was a hedonistic time is how they put it. And so there was like tons of food and drink and they would like turn the Roman order upside down. And so they would have slaves becoming masters and peasants would like command the city and schools would close and businesses would close and everybody would just basically party all the time.
I just love history.com saying it was hedonistic. And I'm like, that's really simplistic way of putting it and continues my beef with history.com. But that's a long
but like
thing.
I think they're trying not to say that everybody was having sex with everybody else.
Yeah. But inadvertently they're doing the same thing by choosing that word. Like, it's just like,
exactly.
word choice, guys.
I know. It's pretty, I don't know. Wouldn't have been my choice, but I just thought it was a funny word. So the pagans were having a grand old time, and then Christianity came around. And before Christmas, Easter was the main holiday for Christians. And then Christians wanted to spread the word around about their Messiah. And so they got the Romans involved. And then the Romans
Romans stopped killing them.
Yeah, exactly. And so when the Romans finally got involved, when some of them finally did, they started spreading it all around, obviously, Europe, other parts of the world. And now we know that it's on like every continent, pretty much. So Pope Julius I, as I said before, made December 25th the official date of Christmas. And it's no coincidence that it was around the time of solstice, because they wanted to absorb the pagans into their new religion as they were spreading their new religion around the planet, and it worked.
Yeah, Christianity is a great sponge to get people in. They're like, hey, you have this God. Well, we're going to make him a saint, and we're going to build our church right on that spot where you worshipped.
Exactly.
So you're already, just go to the same place, just a little different, sit standing and kneeling. It's fine.
I mean, when I say absorb, I don't mean it in a peaceful way. It was bloody, right? Like,
no,
it was. That's a way to make this topic dark. Is that there was lots of bloodshed when that was happening.
When we say conversion, we're not talking like Book of Mormon level conversion.
No,
we're talking like crusade level. We're gonna send children to go fight in the Middle East level. Of bloodbath. And
exactly. Speaking of chocolate, I'm going to go back to Christmas just because Christmas has a lot of chocolate. So first they called Christmas the Feast of Nativity, and they spread their customs to Egypt by 432 Common Era. And then eventually, the end of the 6th century, it came to England. And that's Christmas, not just Christianity. Like, Christianity had started in England earlier than that, I think, but not by much, I don't think.
It's really, probably 500. You're going to get the start of, because you have the fall of Rome, quote unquote, the fall of Rome in the 1400 or 400s. So like, it just depends on who's where. Yeah. How far like the converts got and stuff
exactly.
Like that.
Yeah. So somewhere around there. So Christian church leaders hoped that Christmas would be embraced, or I guess they were calling it the Feast of Nativity at the time, that it would be embraced by these pagan people. And they also gave up the ability to dictate how it was celebrated. And I think that's just through the process of like, they're trying to quote unquote absorb these people, but also trying to like be like, no, you can kind of keep some of your traditions because like, and like that was just their way of trying to like get people to be in their church, right? And so in the early days, I love this. Believers would attend church on Christmas, and then they would basically have Mardi Gras.
That sounds great.
They would leave the church, and then they would have like a carnival, and they would like, the poor would go to houses of the rich, and they would demand like their best food and drink. And if the rich people didn't give it to them, they would terrorize them. They would like,
I'm loving this.
Like pull pranks on them, and just basically lots of mischief and debauchery.
So it's Halloween. You're just telling me this is Halloween, but with better food and drink.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, so basically this is, or like in Germany it's called oh my god, why am I blanking on this? Carnival. And it's around the time of Halloween-ish, and that's basically what it is. It's just a big party, right? So yeah, Christmas was a raucous, debauchery-filled holiday, apparently. But then, fast forward to the 17th century, and there was this really big wave of religious reform, and you get like the Puritans going to the States, and you get Oliver Cromwell in England, and he was such a party pooper. He was such a party pooper. Oh my god! And he literally canceled Christmas. He was like, "We're not celebrating this anymore," and I just. What?
Yeah, it's like the Counter-Reformation, and he was like, I'm gonna lead this bitch. You guys want to be like if we're gonna be Protestants, we're gonna be the most Protestant, anti-Catholic Protestants that there was. Exactly. No Christmas, no dancing, no joy.
No, he was like, it was like Footloose, but like
Countrywide.
earlier. Yeah, and Countrywide. And no, what's the guy who's in Footloose? I always forget his name.
Kevin Bacon.
Thank you. Yeah, none of that.
No Kevin Bacon. They killed a king. I believe this is when they tried the king. They took Charles I's head off. Oh no, they dug up Cromwell and tried him after the fact, after he died, when the king, like, they had the restoration.
Oh my God, that is so typical. So then what happened is Charles II was restored to the throne. And I don't know about all of that English history, like kind of what happened in between there. But then he was like, Christmas is back on. So Christmas came back.
Because he's Catholic.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
He's like, I'll be Catholic, but I'm not going to force y'all to be Catholic, but let's have Christmas and dancing and joy back.
Yeah. So
we can all agree that Cromwell was a depressing guy.
Totally. So I think what happened is he brought it back, but at this point there had been so much religious reform and like, you know, really clamping down on like you just said, dancing and joy, that Christmas kind of came back, but it was like muted. Like it wasn't a big, huge party the way that it was a Mardi Gras anymore. Like it came back a little bit more chill.
Can you imagine a Christmas with Henry VIII?
No.
That must have been nuts.
Oh my God.
Because it was still a party.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know who loves to party and eat fancy shit.
Right?
It's Henry VIII. That's how he got gout.
Yep. Poor guy. I say that with so much sarcasm. Okay, where am I in my little thing here? Okay, so in the US, Christmas wasn't actually officially a thing until like the late 1800s. And it was mostly because of anti-English sentiment, not necessarily Puritanism. It was just Americans were like, we don't want to practice English customs. So
again, sounds right.
Yeah. So they had actually brought English Christmas customs to the US, but then people were like, nah, we don't like those guys. Yeah, exactly. So we're not going to do any of that Christmas stuff. But then I guess somebody was like, all right, we want to have Christmas again. And so in 1870, they made it a federal holiday, and that's been a federal holiday ever since. And yeah, that's basically where it started with like the Santa Claus we know today, because there were the St. Nicholas stories, as far as I know, were really gained traction around that time. And then we had the Coca-Cola thing with Santa, and then it just all went from there, turned into a commercialist holiday where we all buy stuff we don't need. And yeah. There you go. That's a crash course in history, in Christmas history.
It's a crash course into Christmas.
Pretty much.
God. That might be the title, a crash course into Christmas.
Yes, please. I like it. I hope that wasn't too fast, because I felt like there's like so much.
No, you're good.
And it actually didn't turn out being as wholesome as I thought it would. No
holidays are actually wholesome. And I enjoy that because I love, like we said, I love depressing things. And it's like the crazy history behind it that's like, you're like, what is happening? Like, why?
Yeah. There's a lot more detail. Like if you go and actually read about the history of Christmas, it's fascinating. Like, because Christmas is like such a thing that ever since it was kind of introduced has been so like ingrained in our culture, but it's changed with our culture. And so it's actually really interesting. Like I found myself more fascinated with this than I thought I would when I first had the idea of like doing this. Yeah,
I love that. It really seems like the Victorians were like, let's make Christmas a thing. And we're like, yeah, let's go. And the US, I bet there was probably a wave of German immigrants around the time that it came back up. And so people were like, well, that looks like fun.
Yeah.
Let's join.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm sure that's true. The other thing that reminds me, you were saying the Victorians or whatever, Valentine's Day, because it never was really a big thing. Like it was a thing, I guess, even in Roman times. But the Valentine's Day we know today, the way with all the commercialism and all the cards and all the chocolate, was like a thing from like the early 1900s, really. So, yeah.
Oh, they brought us so many things.
Indeed.
We shouldn't thank them.
Are you sure?
I will thank them for germ theory. I will thank them for that, but...
Okay, fair enough.
They were also the ones who set up like military industrial complexes and stuff like that.
Yeah, and sort of started climate change.
They really did.
Yeah.
So can you tell everyone where to find you?
I can. So my podcast called Not Another X-Files podcast is all about the X-Files. We watch an episode and then we talk about it. It's lots of fun. And we're going into season 8. And you can find us, basically go on Google, Not Another XF Pod, and you'll find us on Twitter and Facebook and wherever else, Instagram, and find our podcast.
Yeah, and then next week we'll have someone new on and a new topic. I think I have it planned. Who knows? We'll be there.
Exciting. I can't wait to hear it myself.
Okay, bye.
Hi, it's Carolyn.
And Vanessa.
From Not Another X-Files podcast.
We're the female-led X-Files podcast you didn't even know you were looking for.
We've got plenty of opportunities for nostalgia, conspiracies, forbidden romance, and plenty of laughs.
It's true. Come on over to our place in Vancouver, Canada, and revisit your favorite 90s sci-fi TV show.
You'll be glad you stopped by. You can find us on all your favorite podcast spots.
And on the web at notanotherxfpod.libsyn.com.
Bye.
Bye. Music for this promo by Purple Planet.
Hey, this is Liz,
Hey, this is Heather,
and we are Nerdy Bitches Podcast.
a show where two geeky ladies podcast their way through pop culture.
From movies and TV to our regular book club and everything in between, we bring you our favorite fandoms with a feminine eye.
We are talking Star Wars, Star Trek, DC, Marvel, comic books, and anime.
And don't forget sci-fi, fantasy, action movies, video games, D&D, board games, and so much more.
Be sure to check us out on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, or wherever you find awesome podcasts.
You can also find us hanging out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and at nerdybitches.com.
See you soon.
Cult of Domesticity. We're available on all podcatchers. Remember to rate, review, subscribe to help spread the word, or just force other people to listen to it. Our Facebook and Twitter are at Domestic Podcasts, and our Instagram is at the Cult of Domesticity. We also have podcast merch at Threadless. As well, if you want to support us financially or show some appreciation, we have a PayPal tip jar and a Patreon, which has some pretty great perks. Any topic suggestions, feel free to email us at domesticpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to stay domestic and cult-free.